It's time to go on record. I make my season predictions and let you know how this Iowa football season is going to play out.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. I've been covering the Hawkeyes for over 20 years on the radio here in the great state of Iowa. You can hear me currently on the Iowa Sports Radio Network each weekday from noon to 2 as I talk the world of sports and a lot of Hawkeyes with you. You can hear me on Des Moines Sports Station 106.3 KXNO, along with stations in Sioux City, the Quad Cities, Iowa City, and Cedar Rapids. Today, we are going to talk about a big recruiting weekend for the Iowa women's basketball team as Jan Jensen looks to secure one of the top players in the country. We'll also be joined by Eliot Clough. He was in Iowa City for the press conference as we continue our preview for the Week 1 matchup against Albany and throughout this Iowa football season. But it is time to put pen to paper and make my season predictions. We will get into that. Before we get into my season prediction, though, for the year and how I believe this Iowa football season is going to play out, a shout out for you. Talk about our everydayers, the people with us each and every day, and a big thank you to all of you. But a thank you to everybody that has hit subscribe watching us on YouTube. Over 5,000 subscribers now on our YouTube page. Couldn't do it without all of your guys' support. A big thank you and showing the network, the Locked On Network, with our hundreds of podcasts that we have, just the power of Hawkeye Nation and what you guys all are. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe for me. It really does help us and helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. If you just listen on the podcast side, on the audio side, those 5-star reviews on Apple go a long way as well. All right, here we go. Let's predict how this season is going to look. Captains also announced for game number 1. It'll be Cohen Entringer, Logan Jones, Ethan Herkett, and Mark Gronowski. No surprise, the first 3 guys, they were the 3 that were voted to make their way to Las Vegas for Big Ten Football Media Days, as was announced by the Players Council and Iowa Football. But how about Mark Gronowski? I think a pretty big coup for him to be able to get that kind of honor, to be a captain for a guy that just got here. And the expectations are high for Mark Gronowski, as we've talked about a ton here on Locked On Hawkeyes. All right, let's go. Prediction time. So throughout the years and doing this here since I've been on the air in Central Iowa, going back now 16 years since I was on a full-time role starting in 2009, I believe in the 15 previous years, I've been right on or within a game 12 of those 15 years. So been pretty close overall. Now, there's also been some high water marks. Probably my best year was the 2009 season. And if you remember, you old timers, the narrative going into that year, remember they had the difficult road trips that year. They were going to Michigan State. They were going to Ohio State. They were going to Wisconsin that season. And because of the road schedule, nobody believed. I believed in the talent, and it certainly showed out in that Orange Bowl championship season of 2009. When everybody was down on Iowa, I was a little bit higher. There's been the other ones. The 4-8 season back in 2011, I think it was. I was not out on that one. And a year ago, I was off. I thought this team was going to be special. I thought they were going to win double-digit games, and we know that was not the case last season. So here we go. For better or worse, let's make our predictions as we run through the Iowa football schedule. We open things up. Game 1 against Albany coming up on Saturday. I have mentioned to you, I think that we're going to see a domination here. I got Iowa winning this one 41-0, a shutout from the defense. They're going to be outstanding. There'll be some ups and downs, I'm sure, at times offensively. Remember, we're still working out the kinks of the early season, but you're going to see a lot. You're going to see a big game on the ground. Iowa's going to be able to do, I think, whatever they want on that front. And we'll see if Mark Gronowski and the receivers can start clicking, get some good ones. Here's a little extra for you as Iowa opens up the season 1-0. Mark Gronowski with 2 touchdowns and Hank Brown with a touchdown through the air. There's my prediction for game number 1. But the season really starts in week number 2 as Iowa goes on the road to take on Iowa State. Gronowski walking into that environment for the first time as a starter for the Hawkeyes on the road. You love the experience that he has. Iowa has dominated this series in Ames, and I believe that will continue. Though the Iowa State offensive line looked a whole lot better in the fourth quarter of their game against Kansas State, I think there were definitely some issues there, and especially at the tackle position for Iowa State. I think the Iowa defense ultimately wins this game for the Hawkeyes, as I have Iowa winning this one 2013 to go to 2-0 on the season. Week number 3, the final tune-up before conference play begins, as Iowa will welcome in the Minutemen of UMass. Now, I don't think we're going to see Marcus Camby and Lou Rowe and Travieso and the rest of the crew back in the 90s going to be in the building. UMass program, it just isn't very good. Making their move to the MAC, though, in football. Easy win for the Hawkeyes, 37-10, as Iowa moves to 3-0 in the non-conference. To conference play we go in a short week as they go out to Rutgers then the following Friday. I like Iowa in short weeks. Kirk Ferentz has proved in these short week games that he's been tremendous, really everything short of the game against UCLA last year. They got off to a great start before the Jay Higgins injury and the Brendan Sullivan injury. I think Iowa, with the short week and what they've been able to prove in those Black Friday games throughout the years, they'll be able to do it again against a decent Rutgers team as the Hawkeyes go to 4-0 with a 24-13 win. So then the big one. Here comes Indiana. And we'll see the Hoosiers the week previous have a huge matchup against Illinois. But if Indiana's undefeated, Iowa's undefeated, there's going to be a top 20 matchup. Both these teams, the expectations, the calls are going to be starting. Of course, the SEC wonks will be out there, probably ripping on both the Hawkeyes and the Hoosiers. This Indiana team can move up and down the field. They will stretch you vertically. Mendoza, their quarterback, is tremendous, and I think an upgrade of what they had a season ago, which says a lot because they were good at that spot a year ago. A lot of returners also, all those guys that Cignetti brought with him out of the transfer portal, a lot of those guys had multiple years of eligibility, So a lot of guys back that have experience, have been in the program for a long time, but ultimately, Kinnick Stadium's too much. Iowa wins it 27-23, goes to 5-0, and probably at this point into the top 15 in the country. Up next, it's a road trip to Camp Randall, and though Iowa has played very well recently in this series, we know Camp Randall's not been always an easy place to play. Wisconsin has one of the most difficult schedules, not just in the Big Ten, in the country. If you haven't looked at it, it's going to be an absolute bear. And though I don't think Wisconsin is going to be a great team this year, I do believe that they are going to be improved with what they have with Grimes coming in as their offensive coordinator, somebody that makes more sense for the DNA of Wisconsin football. They're going to get back to running the ball, and I think Iowa loses a tight one in Camp Randall, 23-20, as Iowa takes their first L of the year. Then after that, it's a monster one. Very well could be the number one team in the country at the time as the Penn State Nittany Lions come to town. We've had a lot of success against Penn State throughout the years, a lot of great victories. 2008 in the Green Out game with Sean Green and what that turned into. Of course, in 2009, going out and knocking off that Penn State team as Iowa got off to the tremendous start. There's been some good ones, some great ones, and I think this is going to be one that isn't going to look quite like that. James Franklin, I despise the guy. However, he's kind of owned Kirk Ferentz. Joe Pod, not the case. But this one, it's gone the other way. Penn State, too talented, too good. Even in Kinnick, I got the Nittany Lions winning at 27-16 over the Hawkeyes. So after 2 consecutive losses, Iowa sits at 5-2. Up next is the Gophers coming to town. This Minnesota team's going to be interesting, and we'll see them tonight as they open up the season against Buffalo. Want to get a look at them. New quarterback coming in. Some questions on their offensive line. They usually figure that out, though, and that's one thing that Phil Fleck, as difficult as it is for me, and it pains me to have to give Phil Fleck credit, he's built a pretty good program and what they do up front. Another tight one down to the wire, but I got Iowa winning at 21-17 to get back off the schneid after 2 consecutive losses. Up next, here's a huge one. Another preseason top 5 team, Oregon, makes their way to Kinnick Stadium. And I keep going back to what happened a year ago when Oregon went out to Camp Randall themselves, played Wisconsin, a bad Wisconsin team. Braden Locke was awful in that game, and if they had any decent quarterback play, I think they would have beat the Ducks, an Oregon team that, by the way, went 13-0 in the regular season. There's something about Kinnick, this environment, albeit if it's an 11 a.m. game, 9 a.m. Pacific time, or a night game, I think it's going to be a great environment. And I have Iowa pulling a huge upset here, beating the Ducks in overtime, 26-23. Iowa then sits at 7-2, and the whispers start. You know what? If this Hawkeye team with that quality victory against the Ducks, if they get it done and run the table the rest of the way through November, Iowa could be a college football playoff team. Alas, it ends very quickly as Iowa once again goes out to the West Coast, this time to the Coliseum to face off against USC. It's not going to go well. We've seen this song and dance too many times before. Trojans win at 30-17 as Iowa takes L number 3 of the season. A bounce back on senior day against Michigan State. Iowa wins it 34-19 as they pick up their 8th victory of the year. And then we go to the final week of the season against Nebraska. And maybe some of those murmurs are still there, depending on the way college football. Remember, there was a lot of talk about a bunch of 9-3 teams a year ago getting into the college football playoff. And with the Oregon win in their back pocket, maybe Iowa could get there. But for the first time since 2011, Iowa falls in Nebraska as the stinking Huskers get it done 28-20. Iowa finishes the regular season at 8-4 on the year. Over the win total, out there at 7.5 at FanDuel. Above that number, however, not good enough to make a big punch forward throughout the course of the season. There is a bowl game in front of them. I got Iowa heading out to LV. That's right, the Las Vegas Bowl. Now, there's still this weird connection with the old Pac-12 and the Las Vegas Bowl. I got Iowa playing Washington. Yes, now a conference made in that game out in LV. It's Vegas, though. I'll be excited to go there if it plays out in that fashion. There it is, 8-4, my prediction for the Iowa football season. And let's hope everybody, that's a whole lot better than that. We continue Locked On Hawkeyes. Let's go inside the program. Eliot Clough from HawkeyeInsider.com. He joins us next as we roll through on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hawkeyes. Hey, Hawkeye fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL to get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You could make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought this was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and for other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now and use my limited promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25 cents per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offers vary by user and by location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is also brought to you by SupplyHouse. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with SupplyHouse. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service.
So let's talk some Hawks. Eliot Clough, HawkeyeInsider.com, part of 24/7 Sports, listening into the press conferences yesterday. Eliot, Trent, and Ken, as always, thank you for coming on. Appreciate your contribution to the radio team. Let's start with Kirk Ferentz yesterday. He named his left tackle. It wasn't a surprise to many who'd been following it, but just your thoughts on what you heard from Coach Ferentz. Let's start there.
Yeah, you mentioned him naming his left tackle in Trevor Lauk being the starter, but he also said that Jack Dotzler was going to get some time tomorrow, or sorry, on Saturday. I wish it was tomorrow. On Saturday at left tackle for Iowa. Said a lot of these names are written in pencil, not in permanent marker or pen. That's probably why we saw so many oars on that original depth chart. So not super willing to commit to a lot of these guys as starters, other than the folks that have been around for a while, Jennings Dunker, Logan Jones, Bo Stevens, those guys. Running backs as well, 2 oars on that group with Kamari Moulton, TJ Washington, Xavier Williams, and of course Jazzy and Patterson. But really, other than that, he's just not super committal right now, I guess, if you will. And other than, Mark Gronowski being the starter too, that is very clearly his job. But not a whole lot from Kirk yesterday in terms of like the opponent or anything like that. There's just so little to know about Albany right now with the turnover on the roster and the fact that they still have an interim head coach. So truthfully, I mean, right now we're still in limbo, right? Like we just have to see some football.
With that, you mentioned the running back position. So Moulton's back out there healthy. See a lot of him. TJ Washington, Jazzy Patterson, we kind of know. The two guys not listed, though, maybe the ones most intriguing. We've heard so much about Nathan McNeil and then Brevin Dahl, and we know that he was banged up last year. What do you know about those two guys? It sounds like McNeil's going to play at least in some fashion. And what have you heard about Brevin Dahl?
Yeah, I know. First of all, I'll start with Brevin. As far as I know right now, his role on this team this season is largely going to be on special teams, whether that's gunner, whether that's getting involved, maybe in return. I doubt it right now, but whether that's being gunner or on kickoff, I'd expect that to be Brevin's role this season, unless, things transpire a little bit differently as the year goes on. He's just really working on gaining that confidence back after missing a good chunk of the spring and entering year two. So I don't have huge expectations for Brevin this year, but it wouldn't surprise me if he does see some time on the field. With Nathan McNeil, we're definitely going to see him on Saturday. I don't know what that's going to look like. You mentioned all those names, and we know all the names on the depth chart ahead of him. It's just a really deep room. So like Kirk said, he's given Nathan McNeil the green light, but as much as we see tomorrow, I keep saying tomorrow, this weekend, that's a good question. I'm not sure how they're going to balance that out. If it is a blowout, we'll probably see a little bit more of McNeil in the second half, and who knows, maybe we get to see some of that lightning in a bottle that we've heard about.
Would you be shocked if you guys get a box score after the game, or we go online and find it? McNeil leads the team in carries after Saturday's game.
Ooh, that's a good question. I do think that is definitely contingent on how the first half goes. And if it's, 24-0, 31-0 at half, and you go into the fourth quarter and Iowa possesses the ball a bunch and you just look to hand the ball off to your young guy and get him some reps, I could see that. I probably would lean to the field if I'm forced to bet. Kamari Moulton could come out in the first half and they could just possess the ball with turnovers or what have you, and he could end up with a bunch of carries. So I would probably put my money on the field. I don't know if I'd lean McNeil leading the team in carries quite yet, but I guess I wouldn't be flabbergasted if that happened. We'll say that.
Let's go to the quarterback spot. And Eliot, I know you wrote a big article up at Hawkeye Insider after your conversation with Mark Gronowski yesterday. We heard early on, it was rough. He's shaking off the rust and all those different things, but it's kind of continued. Maybe not as quick. Is Mark Gronowski, do you see him as maybe a tough critiquer of himself? Because listening to your guys' interviews yesterday, that was my takeaway, is it seems like he can be maybe a little hard on himself and talking about the footwork and the like.
Yeah, I guess knowing the amount that I do about Mark, that doesn't surprise me. He seems like a quintessential, like easy on others, hard on himself kind of guy. And that's really what a guy like Kirk Ferentz loves to have at quarterback. So I think it's just a further affirmation that he's a fit at Iowa. And when you are a Division I quarterback, when you are that level of a football player, you kind of have to be, right? And especially moving up from South Dakota State, where it's just a different level of competition. I think having that sense of self-criticism is honestly, like, I see it as a green flag for a guy like this in coming into this role, because I mean, who's to say Cade McNamara had that? It's just a different level of mindset that Mark brings to the table. And I think it's a recognition that, he's not going to be perfect, that he's going to make mistakes, but he's going to do everything he can in his power to adjust to those mistakes and to fix those mistakes. So, I think it's there, and a lot of really high level athletes have that. And that's how they end up being high level athletes. So, I wouldn't say it necessarily caught me by surprise or anything like that, but it is an attribute that he has that he brings to the table.
One thing that I think caught a lot of people by surprise was Sam Phillips. I mean, I heard about Gillen, Parker, leading up to the season over and over, and Seth Anderson looks like he's finally healthy again. And don't forget about Weegan. Ferentz is going out of his way to mention Reese Vanderzee did so on the Big Ten Network when they were out in Las Vegas. But I never heard about Sam Phillips until the depth chart comes out. And there he is as one of his starting wide receivers, all 5'7" of them. I'm not knocking his height. That's a fact. But I'm anxious to see him play. How did he sneak up seemingly on everybody, or when did he first appear on your radar, Eliot?
Well, I don't know about when he first appeared on my radar necessarily. Like I heard some good things about him in the spring when he was available. He did miss a little bit of time just with an injury. I had a source describe him to me as silky smooth. And I think people are starting to see that a little bit more consistently since he's been available. And he's really, he got his feet wet in the spring, but I think he's got his feet under him now over the last 3 weeks of really being able to get the muscle memory down of the offense, learn the intricacies of it all, learn where he needs to be for Mark Gronowski to get him the ball, where to be to block, to be more effective, or to help the team be more effective in the run game. I think it's one of those things with him having been a college football player for so long and having been so productive at Chattanooga, it was about just getting his feet under him on the football field. And that must have clicked within the last 3 weeks or 2 weeks. And then it resulted in that confidence that he's built. Like moving from that level to the Big Ten, I think you have to reshape your confidence, if that makes sense. It's a similar thing with Gronowski where you've had the success at this level, but then you jump and the speed of the game's different and the competition level is different. And once you figure it out, all the confidence in the world comes to you and it's all forward from there. And I think that's what's happened recently with Sam. I think he had talent, but now it was just about, getting his feet, like I've said a few times here, and moving forward. And, it is kind of weird. I did write about this yesterday, the juxtaposition of Sam and Reese on the depth chart. Reese is 6'4" and I think 200 some pounds. And Sam is 5'7", 185. And I talked about this a little bit with John Budmeyer at Media Day. And it's like, this offense is so unique in that you're not just tall, so you're an X. You have to win matchups. You have to be able to adjust based on the coverage. And that's what Sam brings to the table, and enough to put him at the top of the depth chart, I guess. Mm-hmm. I'm really intrigued and excited to see what happens just as much as you guys.
One defensive thing I thought was interesting was Cohen Entringer. We know he's a stud. They love him inside the building. One start goes to Big Ten football media days. He's listed as a starter at strong safety. Then at free safety, it's Xavier Wampa or Cohen Entringer. And then even at the cash position, he's listed right behind Zach Lutmer. How does this play out? Because he can't play three positions.
Right. So I tried my best to make some sense of this in that the Or Battles article that I put up, Trent. I don't know if you saw that, but to me, what that illustrates is Iowa's willingness to adapt to the situations at hand and the versatility that Cohen Entringer brings to the table for them in those situations, i.e. the dime package last year that Iowa instituted. I think it started against Washington where Zach Lutmer was effectively another linebacker on the field, but a defensive back. I think what that does is it prepares Iowa and where they're at to have that schematic versatility, I suppose. So if I had to guess, based on the way the depth chart was released, Cohen is your strong safety, right? Zach Lutmer is your cash. And there will be some flexibility between those two guys in those positions. But what listing Cohen at free safety does is provides them an opportunity to start in that dime package where maybe Cohen is free. Maybe Xavier is better at strong in that situation. And you bring in, I don't know, like a Ty Hudkins or a Cale Kolarek as that extra DB. I was surprised by that too. It's definitely unique, but I also think it speaks to Cohen. You mentioned the leadership. You mentioned all these accolades that he's gotten preseason from his teammates. I really just think it speaks to his potential as being the guy on the defense, being the guy that maybe even leaves after this year, has an NFL caliber type year and ends up in the NFL. So I really just, if anything, think it speaks to schematic versatility, but it's based on just how versatile Cohen Entringer is himself.
Eliot Clough, HawkeyeInsider.com, part of 24/7 Sports, along with his colleague David Eichel. Well done. As always, Eliot, we'll run you down next week if your schedule allows. Thanks for joining us.
Yep. Thanks, Ken.
Yep. Good to talk to you. Eliot Clough, as we check in on the Hawks as they get set for Albany.
Thanks, as always, to Eliot Clough for joining us. A good look inside the Iowa football program as we get ready for week one. Well, it's a big weekend because, of course, Iowa opens up the football season, but maybe even bigger for the women's basketball program. A big recruiting weekend, and one of the top players in the country is going to be in town. We'll talk about that as we continue Locked On Hawkeyes. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. Tailgates, rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Taking a look, pulling up the Gametime app in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals. You want to be in Kinnick this weekend? Here's your opportunity. You can get college football games out there as little as $25. I love the app for so many different reasons. Number one, knowing where you're going to be inside the stadium and getting that panoramic view. Plus, no surprise fees at checkout. Absolutely despise when that happens. You think you get a great deal. You see those fees. Not the case with Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Trent Condon back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Thanks to the everydayers out there with us each and every day. Couldn't do it without your support. All right. One thing, speaking of support, we're looking for a little help from you. Locked On wants to hear from you, and we put together a survey to learn more about our listeners, what makes your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes, and thanks for helping us out. Final thing here today as we talk about this season and what it looks like in front of us. And of course, that is a look at the women's basketball program. So coming up this weekend, the number 6 player in the country is making her way into town. So Iowa has been heavily involved now with McKenna Woliczko for the past year plus. Another California prospect that I was after. And listening to some of the people involved kind of in the recruiting space, Hawkeye Report over at On3 does a really good job with Kyle Huseman, who's joined us here before on the program. And he thinks it's down to 2. It's down to South Carolina or Iowa. She's already taken her official visit to the South Carolina program. So this is Iowa's opportunity really to put their best foot forward. And this is going to be a basketball team on the women's side again this season that is going to have an opportunity to be a tournament team. They're going to be very young again in many different spots as they're continuing to turn over that roster. But keep that momentum going, be a tournament team. But if you can land somebody like this, after getting Addie Deal, who will be a freshman this season, you start to stack up these type of players, these elite level players. That's how you get back. Caitlin Clark is once in a lifetime. You're not getting another Caitlin Clark because it wasn't just what she did on the hardwood. It was everything else that went along with Caitlin. However, players like this, to go with Deal, the young talent that they brought in, what they have in the middle at the center position. These are the kind of players. So let's hope it happens for Jan Jensen. Just, you want to see tremendous things for her. She's just such an infectious personality and so easy to root for in this Iowa women's basketball program that's given us so much, but to maintain it, that's difficult. And players like Woliczko, they can definitely help that happen. That'll do it for today. Thanks for being with us. It'll be a Football Friday edition as we'll get you ready for the matchup. Some final thoughts on the Iowa football season. We gave you the predictions today of how the season's going to play out. We'll give you some statistical numbers, how I believe things are going to look tomorrow. Plus, we'll be joined, speaking of Hawkeye Report, Tom Kakert will join us in his normal Friday spot. Your team every day. That's what we do here on the Locked On Network. I got you covered on the Hawkeye front. Thanks for being with us as always. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Until then, go Hawks.